But it's something that I've also wanted to. I've kind of been. This is a less fully formed idea than most of the things that I usually talk about in these kind of videos. But this is something that I've only recently started to kind of have my opinion shift on, and I'm kind of. I'm hoping that like talking through it here is going to help me sort of form this idea. But something that I used to say for a long time is that characters like Ladiva, characters like Vaseraga, and some others of the like, right, had bad defense, right? And my idea when I say this is that that they have, for example, I think having a good 6XL is very important for having good defense in this game, because like characters like Catalina or something who will like space you out with big buttons in the corner, one of the safest ways to try and take your turn back there is to like try and like guess when they have a little gap in their offense and like 6XL out and get your plus frames back, right? A character like Ladiva is not very good at that, and a character like Vaseraga is the worst in the game at that, at doing the instant 6XL, which isn't charge up. Her dash L goes nowhere, right? It's fun seeing the difference in balance discussions between current and old games, in part because for old games you have to accept that characters will not get touched in any way. Yeah, that's definitely a whole other paradigm. But yeah, so like that, things like this, like oh, yeah, I mean, Vaseraga, for example, has some pretty good buttons. Ladiva has some pretty good buttons too, not quite Vaseraga level, but she's got some pretty good buttons to poke out with and stuff. Like yeah, no meterless reversal, relatively slow buttons, even if they're big buttons, bad 6XLs, try and cheat your way out of the corner, things like this. Bad buttons to mash, risky buttons to mash out with and stuff like that. But sort of a thought that has been occurring to me recently, and this started actually, I'll get him back on screen here, but this started when I was playing Eustace, right? And I was playing Eustace, and I was like, it felt much more uncomfortable for me to be in the corner on Eustace than it did when I was playing Ladiva. And at first, I kind of chalked it up to like, I'm just like more comfortable on Ladiva. I've been in defensive situations against a lot of characters like way more often on Ladiva. I have way more experience. So like it's just like it's a discomfort with Eustace thing. And that's true, yes, that all of that is true. But it came down to, I realized when I guessed right on defense, when I managed, because when you're in the corner, it's a bad situation for everyone, right? You are essentially like trying to RPS your way out of your opponent's pressure, and it's them favored RPS. Like they're gonna do more damage for being right than you are, right? So when I guessed right on Eustace, a lot of the times I got like this. Well, okay, it would go 1, 2, 3, and then like this or something like that, right? A lot of the times you do the medium version there too, right? So you can save the thing. So I'll get like that or something, right? And that is really not good, right? You can get some more, you can get some better stuff, certainly. You can do this is the real thing, right? If you want your like reward on Eustace, you can do that. You can like bomb DP loop off that and all that. But yeah, I realized as I thought about it more that I think the reason it felt so horrible to be on defense with Eustace is that the risk reward of the situation was just terrifying, right? It's like if I'm in this situation, a lot of the times, like even if I really ball out, right? I don't know, I'm getting what, like probably something in the realm of like 5K if I spend a bunch of resource and like, a brave point and all of this. A lot of the times, off just like, the easiest hit confirms and stuff, I'm getting like 2K damage, right? Whereas, right, a lot of if you get like some random straight as Ladiva, yes, you probably need a little bit of meter expenditure, but it's still much more worthwhile meter expenditure, right? You can still do things like this. Right? So it's not just the damage, it's also the fact that now he's in the corner. Right? It felt much more rewarding in general to guess out of the corner on Ladiva than it did on Eustace, and a big part of that was the fact that she got so much more reward, not just on damage, but also on corner carry, on hit, right? Even if we compare the light rewards, right? Not only is the damage much better, going like 2L, 2L, 4L like that, right? Even, I mean, again, if Eustace wants to spend some meter on that, I'm not entirely sure what like the best thing for him to do would be, right? To spend 50 here. Probably can you convert off that? I don't think so, right? Like I want to go like a very similar like apples to apples comparison here. I guess you could, yeah, because that's not gonna do anything. Right? You 2L, 2L, 4L into that. I don't know, right? If you want to spend 50, I mean, he at least gets back to full screen, I guess, right? But again, compared to this, it's not quite as rewarding, right? Something like this. And again, notice how we're on the other side of the screen now. So the reason that it felt so much better to be on defense with Ladiva is because she got so much higher reward on every single hit. And I started thinking, like, does Ladiva have better defense than Eustace? Right? I mean, they both. Eustace is not like the paragon anyway. It's like he has a better 6XL, sure. He's got like his buttons are not necessarily that much better. His 6XL is better, understandably. But like, he doesn't have a meterless reversal either, and his reward is so much lower. And I was like, have I been evaluating this shit like backwards the entire time? The other thing is the health, right? again, I have become much more risk-reward pilled as I've played more of fighting games. And unironically, I think having higher health makes your defense better. All things, you know, ceteris paribus, all other things being equal. Just because, again, it's all about risk-rewards. And like the decisions that will consistently win you matches more often are the ones that balance the risk and the reward based on the information you have at the time the best. That's a very hard calculation to do in like at runtime, which is why fighting games are difficult, right? But inherently, if you have 18,000 health versus 14,000 health, you can just make more mistakes, right? You can be wrong on defense more often, and you know, you will win more rounds that you were wrong on defense once or twice. So yeah, and there's no skill to having more health; it's just passive. That's a good point. So with all that in mind, essentially, again, this is sort of like an idea that I'm still kind of forming in my head here, so bear with me. But I have started to realize, like, wait, how? Like, what does that mean? Like, what does it mean to have good defense in this game? And I think I had most of the components somewhat accurate, right? In the sense that I think, you know, like, still having, like, good buttons to mash helps. Having good 6XL is still important. But the reward you get off guessing correctly does matter a lot. Funny enough, so one of the reasons, for example, that you could argue that, you know, Ladiva's defense is not better than Eustace's, is, like, if I have Eustace do, what's the easiest way to do this? Probably. If I have him do, like, bonk, 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 I guess, right? Bonk, bonk. Right? That right there. Ladiva cannot safely sideswap, for example, off getting a counter hit BC, right? He's not really fast enough. He gets a 50-50, so that's nice. But, like, she doesn't really side swap that well because she's so slow off getting that counter hit. She can super jump, but, like, right? Like, he's up in time to try and 2H me there, and I'm not really going to get the side swap. Whereas a lot of faster characters, Eustace included, if I remember correctly, can actually do that. But there, you can super jump pretty early with some dash momentum, and he definitely can. He definitely can, right? My point being that, regardless of Eustace's particular case, I don't want to spend this whole video labbing Eustace side swaps. My point is, something like that, for example, will be something that I now factor in to how good your defense is. The rewards you get when you guess correctly on things. So with that in mind, it kind of does start to recontextualize a lot of my opinions on character defense. I will say, by the way, real quick, I'm not quite so sure it does the same thing for, like, this guy. I'm not quite so sure, because, like, this Vas has the distinct dishonor compared to Ladiva and Vaseraga of not having any good buttons to mash out with. At least, you know, like, Ladiva has her 2M's pretty good, her far M's pretty good, and pretty fast. Vaseraga obviously has very good buttons. Vaseraga has the distinct dishonor of both having worse buttons to mash out with than these guys and doing less damage when he gets a hit. And his 6XL is better for defense than Vaseraga's. But yeah, when he has this up, by the way, Vas has good defense, right? Because then he can do this. And this is, you know, this is just bar none one of the best moves. This is one of the best defensive moves. This is just one of the best moves in the game. With Soulforge, like, that first step right here, that's one of the best moves in the entire game, right? Like, just fucking, that thing right there is like a top 5 move or something. Maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but with Soul, this is just like, it just covers everything, right? However, Suja gets corner to corner off 6XL. Yeah, but I mean, that's her I'm talking more so as a defensive option, right? At least as far as the reach. But that's the reward is a lot higher. It's true. It's true. But yeah, so Vas, I don't think this quite changes my opinions on Vas, because a lot of what I'm talking about here doesn't really apply. I mean, you could say that, like, you know, you tackle isn't that bad of a defensive option, because he does get, oh, it is a little finicky, but he does get quite a bit of reward if he hits that shit raw, right? But, like, even still, it's the reward for it is at its worst when he's in the corner like this, right? And he does not get a whole lot of corner carry. But you can say this is like a pretty decent defensive option because of how scary it is to get hit. Right? He can do quite a bit of deeps there for sure. But overall, I don't think this really recontextualizes my opinion on Vas. In fact, I mean, unfortunately, I think this does probably cement my opinion firmly that Vaseraga has the worst defense in the game. Some people really don't like hearing that, but the only other competitor in my head was like, well, Vaseraga's 6XL is really ass, and her buttons are good, but a little slow and shit like that. But when I think about the fact that, yeah, any single hit that she just gets corner to corner in like 6K, like, she's even better than Ladiva in that instance, right? So it's like, right? So like all this really does, like, this new found thought process just kind of confirms for me that Vas, in my opinion, probably does have the worst defense in the game by far, actually. Again, unless he's got this. right? But Vosk, it can be hard for him to find an opportunity to have soul. If he's, Soul Forge and blocking in the corner are not very conducive. Usually when Voss is on defense, he oftentimes does not have Soul Forge. He has meter, but his meter options are not amazing in my opinion. I mean, it's not even a reversal, right? I mean, yes, the reward on this is like higher than this, but like it's not even invincible frame one. So. Anyway, that little addendum there aside. So it does get me wondering, like, so what exactly, like, how do you weigh these things together? You know what I mean? Like, how do you weigh these things together in terms of how important is the reward in this calculation, right? Like, Versuja has some of the best reward on defense in the whole game, pretty much. Does that mean she has the best defense in the game? Well, no, because I will say, spoiler alert, there's one character I think who just bar none obviously has the top one defense. I was thinking about it for a while, and then I realized, oh shit, wait, no, it's not even a competition. We'll get to them in a second. But, like, does this mean Versuja has, like, top 10 defense because she gets such high reward, even though she does, otherwise have maybe a little bit of a harder time getting people off her? But when she does it, they explode? I don't know. This is the part where I'm still kind of thinking about it, right? But I think it does really elevate my opinion of her defense and kind of her as a character quite significantly, right? I'm just not sure, like, how much. Does Ladiva? I mean, Ladiva is worse than Versuja in this example. In both, like, her buttons are worse and she gets less reward off them than Versuja does, generally. But, like, she still gets pretty good rewards. And in her case, it also leads to a 50-50 a lot of the times. So, like, does Ladiva have, actually, like, top half of the cast defense? I don't think so. I don't know. I think having things like a meterless reversal and a good 6XL is still important, right? But, like, again, is their 6XL really that bad, even if they get this off it, right? Like, if when Ladiva lands a 6XL, she gets, like, essentially corner to corner and, like, 6k. It's like, is her 6XL, not 6k, like, closer to that, yeah, like 5k. Like, is her 6XL even that bad if she can do that off it? Eustace can't really do that shit unless he gets a crouching hit, maybe. So, like, I guess it's not really that bad, right? I guess her defense is actually not the worst in a strange way, which again would elevate my opinion of Ladiva as a character like quite a bit, because it was in my head so far on these characters like one of the bigger like notable holes in their game plan. Now, Ladiva is still always like the worst thing about Ladiva has never been her defense. It's always been how hard she has to, like, how much she has to basically be a goofball to try and do anything in neutral. But, like, her defense is not as big of a weakness as I thought it was, right? Same thing with Versuja. By the way, if you're curious, again, when I said there's a character who, like, obviously this character has the best defense in the game, and I don't think it's super close. We can talk about, okay, so when we recap, let's say good buttons, a good 6XL, really good reward off counter hit brave counter, good reward off stray pokes, right? Like we talked about, for example, all characters get like much higher reward off their auto combo than off like a stray Farel or something, right? And a meterless reversal, right? Who comes to mind? Uno? Close. There is one character who is almost best in slot in everything here. I'm guessing it's Belial. If someone is competing with this character, it might be Belial, but no, that's actually not the person that I'm thinking of. Being Cat? Okay, I'm gonna stop. I'm kind of curious. Sieg? Okay. A couple more again. Think good buttons, good 6XL, good reward off counter hit brave counter, high reward off pokes, meterless reversal, and like no like HP malice or anything like that. Okay, I'll stop. Level 5 Lucy, fair, but not always. Lucilius in general, not necessarily. I'm thinking Cat, Grand, Voss, not Catalina, right? Okay, I mean, I will say, her name came up the most, and I don't even think it's that close. Yes, I think it is Catalina by a landslide, right? Because Cat gets Versuja's reward off, like, more stray hits than Versuja gets it, right? And she has a meterless reversal, and she has better buttons than Versuja, straight up. She gets higher reward off of them, right? And she's still, like, not that slow of a character, so you can't get the side swap off counter hit BC, right? This character, yeah, it really is. I think it's Catalina, and I don't think it's super close. At least by my current metric of how I judge defense, it really, I mean, because, like, again, we talk about, like, like off the Farel, for example, Ladiva's damage went down significantly, right? Guess what? Right? It's the same fucking thing. Guess what? Right? Guess what? It does not matter, I fear. Enchanted lands first? Oh, okay, gotcha. Oh my god! Oh, you're right. It's so much easier than I thought. Okay, yeah. The thrust first? Yeah, you get the idea. You get the idea, though, right? You get the idea. That is off of far L, right? It's off of far L, and it's the easiest, you know, it's guaranteed corner to corner. They could make the stage longer, and that shit is still corner to corner, and it's 5k damage, right? That's off of far L. God forbid you get hit by like an auto combo by this bitch, right? But yeah, so she has basically the highest reward with her back to the wall in the game, where she's tied for it, and she has some of the best buttons in the game, a lot of them. Look at that, look at that fucking 2M, dude. That shit's 7 frames, right? And guess what? Any stray poke, you know, shake my hand, motherfucker. I hope you enjoy going straight to Valhalla, right? So she gets a ton of reward off it. Again, she is also fast enough that she can do stuff like this, right? She can side swap off her Brave counter. She has a Meatless Reversal and a like pretty decent one. Like it's not like Charlotta, but it's a pretty decent one, right? She has not a good 6XL. Let's not say Cat has a good 6XL. Let's call it what it is. Cat has a pre-patch 6XL. You know, like in the patch where they took the range off all the 6XLs. Dude, what is this? I can't believe what I'm seeing. I've not like used this character. What the fuck is this? Are you serious? What in the world is this 6? Okay, yeah. So she has a really good 6, and the 6 still goes like from half screen, right? Yeah. You know, we have to talk about it too. But yeah, this to me is the character to me that exemplifies good defense in this video game in just about every single way. But I have had to admit that, like, you know, Ladiva versus these characters, they share a little bit more with Catalina than I thought they did, right? Again, I still am not fully sure how this would change my opinions on some of these characters, but when I would have like when I would put like Ladiva on a tier list or Versuge on a tier list or something, I would always put it in with the caveat of like, you know, but they have like bad defense and like so a lot of those ands are still true, but like bad defense, is that true? I think at the very least they have okay defense, right? Same thing with like I mean a character. This you could probably say a very similar thing about. I mean, listen, I'm not people. I don't know. People are never gonna listen about Zeta. I don't think. But like, she got some pretty fucking. She got a DP she can combo off of, and she gets a looping 50/50 on every single hit that she gets. Anyway, but yeah, like below. Is it? I mean, below average, right? Like, is it below average? Like it's very like this for example. Jita is a character that I find very confusing with like the new way that I do this kind of stuff, right? Because Jita has way better pokes than like Ladiva, or probably Versuga too, even though Versuga's pokes are way bigger. Ladiva, Jita's are like faster and less risky, right? So like Jita has way better, let's compare to Ladiva at the very least. She has way better pokes than Ladiva, right? But she gets like way less reward off of them these days, right? Like way less reward than Ladiva would, right? It's like, right? So like, does Ladiva have better defense than Jita? I mean, Jita has a Meatless Reversal, right? She can do the counter hit BC side swap, which Ladiva can't. Again, she does have better buttons. She can get some better reward if she wants to like dump some meter into it, like a Raging Strike or something, right? But like, does that? But the fact that she does like significantly less damage, does that make like how comparable is Jita and Ladiva defense? You know what I mean? Her might be lower, but it's also more likely to cash it in. Yes, exactly. Because that's at the end of the day, that's what it's a weighted average of how likely you are to get the hit and how much reward you get off that hit, right? But like, what exactly is that weighting is what I'm struggling to figure out right now, right? Like, it's easy to say that a character like Catalina has way better defense than Ladiva because she has better pokes. The likelihood of it's happening is much higher and the reward is much higher, right? So sure. But like, if Jita has like a way higher likelihood of getting out, but her reward on it is oftentimes way lower, right? And by the way, Belial is very similar to Catalina in the sense that Belial is probably, I did say it's not even close, but like, Belial's probably up there in the sense that he has, if he can't quite compete with Catalina's normals as poke tools, but like also in the buffs that literally did not matter. They didn't give Belial this. So, I mean, who needs, right? Who needs corner carry, right? Like, I mean, you know, remember guys, the buffs literally did not matter, right? Besides the fact that Belial has good corner carry, but it's usually off like an auto combo or something. But like, you know, besides the buffs that did not matter, did give Belial this. So, again, you know, maybe I don't need corner carry. Like, who cares, really? That's the exact... Like, there's an argument there that is about the same damage that Catalina did, and it works off any hit, right? Yeah. Right? So, again, Belial, you could certainly put him in this cast, too. But, like, what about a character that, again, has, like, a way higher likelihood to get out? And this is why, for example, I would probably say that, like, this is one of those things where I would... Sieg technically has full-screen corner carry, true, with the Eureka. This is where I would say, like, you know, it actually turns out, like, that buff they gave Ferry that buff they gave Ferry is actually pretty huge, right? Because, I mean, what was Ferry's reward for mashing out of the corner beforehand, right? I don't know. I mean, I don't know Ferry combos, which probably like, you know, I mean, first off, she has, you want to talk about bad buttons to defend yourself, right? God damn. Right, look at that far L. 8 frames. Pretty big, but 8 frames. But like, and by the way, also 1 attack level lower than it should be. Like, Vaseraga has a far L, but like, you know, she probably does, I don't know, probably, she would have done like this into like the Gespenst. Does that even combo? Even on counter hit? No, it doesn't. 2U into Gespenst, right? And then pull you into her, and then do some shit. Boss Farrell's a medium, yeah. Ferry Far L is a crouching light. It's a 2 attack level difference. But yeah, so I should probably do something like, I don't know, like this, which is a 10 frame move, and to like pull you into her and do some auto combo and some damage. Probably like, you know, 3-5k something. But now, I mean, with that side swap, that is a huge increase. Because essentially, yeah, she doesn't get like the same kind of damage if she does that, but like, boom. Full screen corner carry. Basically, right? Essentially. And it sets up into her 50-50. So like, this was actually, in many ways, a huge buff. Doesn't she side switch? I'm saying before she got that buff. Like, this is like this. Starting to think about people's risk-reward in terms of how good their offense and defense is has really recontextualized a lot of things in this game for me, including, for example, how huge of a buff this was for Ferry, right? The fact she just gets to do this, and then, again, she's plus 34, so it, like, leads pretty perfectly into her just, like, you know, hitting you with some nonsense, right, off that side switch. So, it's again, some still kind of forming in my head, but this is like, I almost, this makes me want, like, this one thing makes me want to make another tier list. Just because, would a way to balance Light Wall be to make it lose to lows? You could. I think, in general, it just needs, like, one Light Wall or you Fireball needs to become a worse corner carry option, right? But, like, this almost, like, this one thing makes me want to make, like, a completely different tier list. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it actually would affect things, like, a lot, right? Because, you know, you gotta spend, a lot of characters have very good corner carry in this game. You gotta spend a lot of time on defense. And, like, if my whole point of view of how good character defense is not quite, like, has been changed in a lot of ways, then, like, right? This is, by the way, this applies, it's not the topic of this video, but in a very similar way, this applies to offense, too. I was having a discussion with someone in the server, Luca, about Nier, and how I think, like, he said that Nier's pressure is fundamentally the same after her nerf. And he's right. Like, Luca knows a lot about Nier, he's a very good Nier, right? So he's not wrong. In that, like, realistically, she's doing the same things on pressure as she used to. They didn't remove any pressure tools besides, like, her, like, Raging Strike, unblockable, I guess. But the thought that I had was that, like, well, but her risk in doing that pressure is so much higher because of how much worse BC and throw tech is for her nowadays. And, you know, the reward is a little lower. It's still very high, but it is a little, well, it's a lot lower in that it doesn't loop into a 50-50, and it doesn't, and it does, you know, and also, like, in general, she costs more stocks, and she does a little bit less damage, because there's been, like, damage scaling on the cancels and stuff like that. So, like, in a very similar way, this has, like, thinking about things this way has made me even less high on Nier, right? Because in my head, I was like, well, okay, but at least, though, right, at least she does still, like, she has this crazy fucking damage when she gets a hit. And that's still true in the mid-screen, right? She still has, like, some of the best neutral in the game in the mid-screen. But it also has made me, for example, sour a lot on Nier's offense. In a weird way, though, she can get a lot of reward if she finds a hit on you in the corner, in the same way she always did, right? I don't know the Nier stuff, but you can get the idea, right? So it makes me feel a lot worse about her offense and a lot better about her defense. So I'm not sure if it would, like, fully shift my opinion on Nier. I think she's still just, like, not very good. But yeah, factoring the reward into things is been very odd for me, I guess. It's kind of what I'm trying to get at. Yeah, is there any other, like, real weird examples of it, right? I guess not, right? But it would be the kind of thing that I would have to, I would have to really sit down and think about how much this affects characters. And again, health does matter. So Nier having 15,000 health, Ferry having 15,000 health, Seox having 14,000, right? Like, it is, at the end of the day, fighting games are protracted risk-reward simulators that are a weighted average of how likely you are to get the hit versus get hit, and how much damage you are going to take when you take that hit or when you get that hit. This is, like, that might sound reductive. This is inherently a big reason of why being in the corner is worse than being in mid-screen in the first place. Because it does both, it makes both sides of that equation worse for you, right? In the sense that you are much more likely to get hit because your opponents can freely adjust their spacing. They can walk back and walk forward, and you can only walk towards them. And when you get that hit, it's much likely, or when they get that hit, it's likely they're going to do much more damage to you than they would if you weren't in the corner. On top of, you probably, unless you're like Catalina or someone, are probably going to do a lot less damage if you get that hit. So it makes every single aspect of that equation a lot less favorable for you, right? You are more likely to get hit. You are less likely to get the hit. When you get the hit, you will have less reward, and when they get the hit, they will have more reward. This is sort of inherently why being in the corner is a bad thing in the first place. So I don't think this is like a reductive way to look at fighting games. It is what they are, essentially. They're very, obviously, the risk reward is constantly shifting based on the person you're playing and the likelihood of them doing different things, since we're not simulating AI here. But if you ignore the player for a second, that is essentially what's happening, is we're just doing a bunch of like weighted coin flips until someone wins. And the characters that are going to have that coin be weighted in their favor more often are gonna be like the kind of characters you might think are top tier. Characters that are either at advantage slightly or heavily, or very rarely ever heavily disadvantaged, are gonna be better characters, right? So when Belial is in the corner, he is not as disadvantaged as a character like who's I guess Vaseraga. We'll say Vaseraga. If you disagree, just bear with me for a second. Because, right, he has a much higher likelihood than most at finding this hit, despite him being in the corner, because of how nice a lot of his buttons are and how, you know, like nice they are for poking out, or like, you know, how big they might be, how fast they might be. Far H is a real menace in this case too. His 2L, which is just, I mean, what the fuck is this thing? Why is this 5 frames and so huge, right? He has a much higher likelihood of getting those hits, and when he gets them, he'll have a much higher reward. So being in the corner is inherently a little bit better for him than it is for anyone else, right? He has those same good buttons, give him, you know, and that big toolkit gives him like a higher likelihood of winning neutral. It gives him a higher likelihood of doing a lot of damage and winning when he has you in the corner. So like in general, this equation ends up tilted towards Belial more often than it would be for a lower tier character like Vikala. Everyone agrees Vikala's bad, right? There's no one's gonna be, it's not gonna be controversial if I say that, I think. And a big reason for that is just that when I say consistency, right? Fighting game players love to say consistency. What is consistency, in my mind at least? It is exactly how often... God damn, I'm gonna pull out the Microsoft Paint. God fucking damn. I'm gonna have to edit this video down. This is too long already. But it's exactly how... If let's say... So YC is your chance. YR is your reward, right? TC is their chance, and TR is their reward, right? This equation, essentially... Like I put a minus here or something, probably. But like these two multiplied and these two multiplied, kind of like this is to me what fighting games essentially are. And how the way you determine if a situation is good for you or not is if your chance to get the reward plus your reward for finding it is higher than their chance to get the reward times their reward for finding it, right? And maybe you can probably argue that in different, like this is not exactly like a 1-to-1. There might be like a weight where, like, you know, maybe reward matters more. Like it's their reward times 1.5 or something like that, right? Or, well, I guess this multiplication is commutative, but you get the idea, right? Like maybe you could like amplify the reward aspect here, like make this way more into the equation in some way, or you could amplify the chance depending on how you're rating things, right? But this equation right here determines if a situation is good for you or bad for you in a rough situation, in a rough sense. And if in a lot of the situations that can come across in a game, right, if this ends up being positive for you, if your chance and your reward ends up being higher or close to their chance and their reward, right, it means that you're gonna probably be winning a lot, right? Would this mean that Abel also has some of the best defense? Well, here's the interesting thing about Abel, right? So Abel is a very extreme case of this, in the sense that Abel does the highest mid-screen damage in the game, point blank period, right? So, yes, but he has like 10,000 health, right? That's another factor to this, right? Like, I would argue that their reward essentially is amplified, like the character's HP factors into this, right? The higher or lower the HP of your opponent, reward is not equal, right? The same 5,000 damage combo is more rewarding on Abel than it is on Vaseraga, right? So this, while Abel's own reward, right? So if he's, you know, your chance, your reward. These two are both pretty good for him, right? Abel has some pretty nice fucking buttons, some very nice pokes to defend himself, right? And when he gets those hits, he probably will end up getting a lot of damage out of it. But the opponent's reward is multiplied significantly on Abel because of how low his HP is, right? Because again, Abel does not have 14,000 health. That's a psyop fed to you by the government to keep you stupid and broke, right? Abel has like 10,000 health, probably. Most rounds, Abel has because again, that super high reward he gets comes at the cost of a lot of EX specials in this patch, right? So like, Abel has closer to 10k HP in reality in most rounds. So, any hit you get on Abel is almost 50% more rewarding on him than it is on anyone else in the cast. If you think about it, Abel is essentially on no Brave points all the time, right? On no BP, you take 50% more damage. Abel has almost half the effective HP of like Grant, right? Almost. So Abel is basically on no Brave points at round start, in a way, right? Because he will spend his own HP, or else he's gonna lose. If Abel's not spending his health, he's gonna lose, right? He's not a character without like all the EX specials, especially in this exact situation where like we're saying his reward is so high. It's because of said EX specials that reward is so high in the first place, right? Point being that where Abel struggles, why I wouldn't say he has the best defense in the game, is because he multiplies this reward factor by the opponent hugely, right? So he really does just like he really volatiles this whole equation to hell and back, right? But for example, right, it is a nightmare, I think, to fight Abel as a lower damage character, right? Because the less damage you do, it's a multiplicative factor, right? So the less damage that you do, the less that multiplication from Abel matters. If you're doing 10k a hit, then that's a lot, it's much more preferable for you than if you're doing 5k. Because the guy doing 10k is getting 15,000 damage effective, whereas the guy doing 2k is doing, 3,000 damage effective. So depending on your own reward is going to depend on how good Abel's defense is. He's kind of a weird character in that way. And that's why, for example, the Ladiva Abel matchup is so funny, right? Because Ladiva does a lot of damage in the corner if she gets a hit. But Abel has quite a high chance to get out of that pressure, and his reward is very high when he gets that chance, right? Simultaneously, if Ladiva is in the corner and Abel has her in the corner, her chance is not very good to get out of the corner, but her reward is multiplied hugely. Because suddenly that 6k combo is, again, effectively like hitting him on no Brave points. So that's why that matchup starts feeling so funny, even though on paper, it probably does still end up being Abel favored, but like it can just be so volatile, right? So that I've kind of gone off the rails here, but my point is that I view fighting games essentially as like these risk-reward simulators, right? Abel also wants to have low HP. Yeah, this is a simplified. So in reality, right? You're gonna make me. In reality, this is very simplified, right? If you take let's take that whole equation, right? And that YC, YR, TC, TR, and let's call it X. Bear with me for a second, right? So in reality, a fighting game match is like, you have X1 and you have X2 and you have X3. It's like, plus X2 plus X3 plus X4, dot. There's like plus X36, and it's all the different possible situations you could be in, and the TC, TR, YC, YR are going to be different in those different situations based on, you're in neutral and you have some amount of meter, and they have some amount of meter, and they have some amount of Brave points, and the screen position, and the character you're fighting, and the matchup, and, again, like the player that you're playing and what they've represented so far, and all of this. Again, this is why you just gotta solve a fighting game, right? It's a very complicated equation. Your ass is not doing that shit in your head at runtime. But again, the rough idea of how it's gonna average out is gonna determine how good you are. So when I then realized that I've just been ignoring risk-reward on defense for a lot of these characters, right, it makes me kind of rethink the strength of a lot of the roster, right? And it genuinely makes me pretty interested to try and make like remake a tier list of some sort, trying to factor this in. But I don't want to also. You want to be careful over factoring in like some new thing, right? It's like, oh, Ladiva's defense is better than I thought. Suddenly she's top 5. No, that's not quite right, right? But like, for example, I will say, I was just talking about this earlier, and over the course of 45 minutes, I'm like, well, goddamn, one of my biggest opinions on a weakness for Vaseraga was that she always felt, but she's got bad defense, right? And like, turns out her defense is probably not amazing, but it's not bad. So what does that mean about my opinion on Vaseraga? This character is like one of the most interesting ones to me right now. Because I've said it, I've been saying it for months, where I'm like, Vaseraga feels pretty balanced in that her strengths are very strong, but her defense is probably like close to bottom 1. And then now I'm like, well, I don't know if that's true anymore. Like Versuja probably has like better defense than Jita does, for example. And I wouldn't necessarily classify Jita as having bad defense. Is Versuja's defense like Catalina level? No, it's not. But like, he's probably like, if we're talking on a scale of 1 to 5, it's probably like a 3. But if that was supposed to be like her big weakness, okay, so like, is this character actually really good? Are people right? Are people telling me that Versuja's like top 10 and shit? Were they actually right? I don't know, right? But like, this one, when I say it like recontextualizes a lot of stuff, it's kind of what I'm talking about, right? Is Ladiva actually a little better than I thought she was? Probably, right? Is you know, does this make like a character like Jita a little worse in my mind? Maybe, right? Does this make Vaseraga, like, I mean, I always thought he had bad defense, but in hindsight, it's even worse now. Does it make him worse in my head? Does it make Seox worse? Does it make Abel better? I don't know. So yeah, that's it. I think that's about it. I'm not really sure what I'm gonna do with this yet, but this is just like a new way of looking at like factoring risk reward a lot more heavily into especially characters' defense. Okay, I've been doing that with offense kind of subconsciously already and like neutral and stuff. Like I just never really, I think I was missing that part of the equation before. I would always just think about like how good are their buttons, how good is their 6XL, right? If they have a meterless DP, how good is like how good is the reward off like BC or something? But like, I didn't really think about just like the actual reward they get when they get their hits as much, and it turns out it changes a lot of shit, man. So I don't know. Yeah. I want to play some. I kind of want to play some more Ladiva. Can I be real with you? You guys hate me if I played some more Ladiva. But yeah, I think that's kind of it. Let's go. That's sort of getting the idea out there. We'll see how we might remake. I kind of do want to. You know, I kind of do want to remake a tier list just as like my final thoughts for season 1 before Sandy comes out, presumably, hopefully, with a big shift. It's not gonna be that long. Maybe we do that now, actually. Maybe we do that now. I'm kind of curious to do that. Yeah, sure. Why not? Let's do that.